Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being
Good
here.
morning.
It's nice to see all of you. So today we are going to be painting this hummingbird. This was a special request from, was it BJ or
No, Colleen,
Colleen?
me.
Okay,
Yeah.
Colleen's special request.
Me
So
too.
we're going to be
You're
painting this
welcome.
cute little guy this morning. I'm going to switch my camera so you can see my workspace. So I'm recording this and I'll send these step-by-step instructions to you after the class.
Oh, nice.
I'm just going to go over the supplies that you're going to need today. So we're going to be drawing on this 1-inch grid paper. And as I said in the email, this is optional if you rather draw it freehand. It just kind of helps get the proportions a little bit better. If you either printed this or if you drew a grid, this is just letter size paper. So we're going to be using that. We're going to be using some tracing paper, one sheet of 8x10 watercolor paper, or if you have a slightly different size, that's fine too.
A little bit smaller.
I've got my workspace here. We're going to be using a number 6 round brush, or a number 8 would work too. I've also got a number 1 brush if you have a 0 or 2, some sort of small brush. That will be helpful. Number 2 pencil. I've got a ruler. I don't know if I put this on the supply list. It'll just help you to draw a couple straight lines that we need to draw. So if you have one of those, it would be handy. My kneaded eraser. I've got my paints. So today we are going to be using Viridian, which isn't a color we normally use. If you don't have Viridian, that's okay. You can use a different green. But if this is that kind of blue-green color that shows up in this painting, we're going to be using Payne's Gray, some sort of red. I used Permanent Carmine, but you could use a magenta or a alizarin crimson or any red you have there. Probably a cooler red. A little bit of yellow if you have cadmium yellow or lemon yellow. A little bit of burnt sienna in the branches. And I used the same red in the flowers as I did in the hummingbird. And if you want to use different colors for your bird, that's completely fine because they are different colors. And then I have a paper towel underneath my palette, and I have my water container up in the right-hand side that you probably can't see. I think that is it for supplies. Any questions about that? Or is anyone missing a major supply that we might need to compensate for? All right, looks good. So we're going to get started here. So we're going to be doing, it's not a super complicated drawing, but it's a little bit more than simple, I would say. So intermediate, let's call it that. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to number the top lines 1 through 9, just in case I need to refer to a specific location as we're going through this. And then I'm going to letter A through, let's just say J. We don't need to go all the way down, but almost all the way down on the left-hand side. And we're just going to break this little guy down into some shapes, as you've heard me say before. I'm just going to move my palette out of the way a little bit here. So if everyone's ready, we're going to start with the head. So we're going to draw a circle for the head in the square between columns or lines 5 and 6 up here, and E and F. So we're just going to draw a circle right inside that. And I'll try to make this nice and dark so that it shows up on the video. So that's going to be the head.
E and F? Huh. I must have done, mine looks like it's lower.
It's fine.
Okay.
We're going to trace this and then transfer it to the watercolor paper. So if your bird starts in a different location, that's totally fine. And it could be that maybe your paper went this way or something like that
Oh,
instead.
that could be it.
Yeah, or the printer printed it weird.
Right.
Those are hard to draw.
Yeah.
Really hard.
Okay. And then we're going to draw a triangle just right inside that top corner, top left-hand corner. That's going to be sort of the base for our beak.
Mm. Okay.
Everybody got that?
Mhm.
Okay. Now we're going to draw in our beak here. The beak is going to span about 1.5 squares diagonally. So if you go diagonally up 1 and then up to, on mine, it's between 3 and 4 and C and D. We're just going to put a dot right in the middle of that square, kind of as a point of reference.
Okay.
And then we're just going to take our ruler and we're going to connect that dot to the top of that triangle for our beak.
Oops.
And we're going to draw 2 lines on either side of that. And if for those who want to measure, it's only like maybe 1/8 of an inch, or I'm sorry, 1/16 of an inch away. So we're going to start at the same point up here, but we're going to end it just a little bit down from that first line. Right there.
So it comes to a point at the end of the
It comes, yeah, you're going to connect it at the same point up here,
got it.
but you're going to end it at a little bit lower down here. So
Okay.
if, I'm just going to hold that up so you can see it.
Okay. Oh, good.
Oh, just on the bottom side.
On the bottom, and we're going to do the same thing on the top.
Okay.
So we're going to draw another line about the same width, connecting to that same dot up there, and then ending a little bit higher than that middle line. So you're going to have something
Okay.
that looks like,
Mm-hmm.
not sure what that looks like, an upside down cake pop. Then when you've got that, we're just going to take and smooth this connection with a little bit of a curved line on either side. So we're just going to smooth out that where that beak connects to the bird right there. So it's sort of looking like a robot bird right now. Okay, so we're going to take our ruler and we're going to sort of make a midpoint here for our bird's body. So I'm going to start right up here at the top, the very top of this circle. And I'm going to go down 2 squares from there. And so 2 squares down from the circle. So you've got 1, 2 at the bottom of the 3rd square. We're going to make a point here, and we're going to connect the top of that circle in the middle to the bottom corner of this square.
Mm.
So this is just going to help us know that the body is sort of moving in this direction.
Mm-hmm. It looks like a mechanical drawing. They're very interesting.
Yeah.
It's so great. Now, if only I could figure out how to actually, disassemble something and put it in the graph.
Mm.
Like look at anyway,
Mm-hmm.
I digress. Or distract.
Okay, so we're going to make a line cutting this head circle in half here.
A little bit on an
And
angle.
yes, a little bit at an angle. Thank you. So this should look like a plus sign. And then we're going to draw another circle at the top of that line we just drew. That's about half the width of the top of the circle here. I'll hold that up so you can see it. And then a little tiny circle kind of to the right of that line. Right there at the top of the circle. That's going to be a little reflection in the eye. So the bigger,
Inside that little circle.
yeah. So like right here where my pencil is pointing to,
Mm-hmm.
a little circle right in there. Okay.
Mhm.
All right. So we're going to draw the front of the body now. I'm just going to make a little mark in this square right below the head on the left side here, a little mark. And I'm going to draw a curved line from the bottom left-hand side of the circle, kind of like right in the middle here. I'm just going to draw a little curved line like this. And then I'm going to continue that curved line down to the bottom of that square. So this is kind of like the front of the bird's body here, this little curved line. I'm going to draw one more from about where this little diagonal line starts, a little curved line just sort of connecting the circle to that other curved line. And then I'm going to connect this one down to this point with another curved line. So I'm just going to follow this curve all the way down. All right, we're going to start on the back of the bird and the wings. So I'm going to make a little point of reference right here in this square between 6 and 7 and E and F, or just to the right hand side of the top of the body that we just drew. So right here. And I'm going to draw a curved line from this line that intersects the head down to that point. Slightly curved, I guess. It's not super curved. And then I'm going to draw a straight line that goes from that point down to line I, or basically spanning 2.5 squares there. From that point down 2 more squares. And then I'm just going to connect this line here, this curved line that we were drawing. I'm going to follow that curve through to that straight line right there and close the loop. So we just have a couple more to go before we're done with this guy. We're going to start at this point of reference here on the back. We're going to take our ruler and we're going to connect that point of reference down to this intersection here at line 8 and row J, which is 1 square down and 1 square to the right of where we ended this straight line. This is going to be the back of the tail feathers. Everybody doing okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good.
Yes.
So the last part is the wings. So we're going to come up here to sort of the top part of the body, and we've got this line that's sort of moving down diagonally. I'm going to put a point of reference just right in the middle of that square on that line right there. And then we're going to draw 2 little curved lines like this for the top of our wings.
Mm.
Just right there. And then yours might be in a little bit different place, and that's fine. We're going to connect the top one to, if you go from that top one and you go directly up to column 8 and line D, put a point of reference. We're just going to draw a line up to there.
Oh, can you? Oops, sorry.
Sure. It's
Okay.
column 8 and row D. That's going to be the top of the top wing.
Just a straight line, right?
Just a straight line.
Cool. Thanks.
And then if you go over to column 9, in between D and E, let's just put a dot there. And then we're going to connect that bottom or the other wing, it's not the bottom wing, to that dot. So those are going to be the tops of our wings.
Oh, shoot. See, I made a mistake.
Now, when I was originally drawing this, I do break the whole thing down into shapes, and I had a circle here for the body and a circle for the head. I sort of look for circles and ovals and squares and lines. So this was my thought process when I, well, this was actually the second time I drew it, but because I didn't do it on a grid the first time. But just sort of to answer your question, Sinden, I sort of look for, okay, where this is kind of a small circle shape and this is a bigger circle shape, and then they're kind of connected by these curved lines. And, you know, I like to put sort of a midline showing the direction the body is moving. You know, the beak is kind of a triangle here and then a long line. So those are the kind of things I.
Did you teach yourself this, or did you take a class where you learned how to do that?
I didn't take a class. I kind of learned it through teaching other people how to draw things.
Okay. It's so good because it always comes out looking so real.
Too much geometry for me, though, I'll have to tell you.
Yeah. You know,
But I
for
love
some
it.
people, it might be more fun to just draw it freehand. The reason I do this for the classes is because it just kind of makes it easier for people who are intimidated by drawing, you know.
Mhm.
That'd be me.
Okay, I'm attempting to get a piece of tracing paper out of my pad here. So is everyone good with drawing?
Mhm.
Okay, so I'm going to take a piece of tracing paper.
Hi, Catherine. Can you show us the final picture so we have context a little
Sure.
more?
Yeah.
Okay.
Here, let me put it side by side. So we've got we're going to trace the sort of the outline of the body. So we won't be tracing all these inside lines or inside the beak. The only line we're going to trace for the beak is sort of the outside in that middle line. And then we've got our eye. We're going to trace the outside of the body here. We're going to trace these lines for the tail feathers, and then these lines for our wings.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right, so I'm going to take my drawing and I'm going to put a little piece of tape. Oh, I think that was one thing I didn't say, but painter's tape. Hopefully everyone has some painter's tape or some artist tape. I'm going to put a little piece of tape at the top of my drawing. Then I'm going to put my tracing paper over the top and just tape that down so it doesn't move. And then we're going to trace the outside lines. If you need to use your ruler for the straight lines, feel free to do that. So I'm just going around the outside of the bird here. And I'm working my way down from the beak. And I'm just going around the outside of the head here. And then I am going to include that middle line of the beak, and I'm going to trace it down to the top of that triangle, but I'm not tracing the triangle. And then we want the eye and the little circle inside the eye. And then our wings. And these are just guidelines for the wings. So we're going to be using brush strokes to actually paint the wings. And then the guidelines for our tail feathers. So when you're done tracing, your bird is going to look something like that. Those are the lines that we want to trace.
Whoa.
And I'm going to put my drawing aside and put this down so you can see it. Now, you notice we didn't paint or we didn't draw the flowers. So we're going to paint our bird first. And then we're going to paint the flowers around the bird and then draw in the branches and paint them. Everybody doing okay with that? Okay. So I'm going to write the word front at the top. And I know it might be obvious at this point which way is up, but sometimes it gets confusing. So I'd like to write the word front so I know which side is up. And then I'm going to take my drawing and turn it over underneath my tracing paper. And then I'm going to turn my tracing paper over upside down. So now the word front is backwards. So now what we're going to do is we're going to prepare this to transfer it to our watercolor paper. We're going to rub graphite over all of the lines with our pencil. And so to do that, we're just going to make these sort of big scribble marks over all the lines. So I'm just scribbling over the whole beak here. And over just all these lines here. So nothing fancy, just some nice big scribbles.
So while we're scribbling, Catherine,
Mhm.
when you go to travel and take your paintings things,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, do you like it take a lot of stuff, or do you have a big old tote, or?
No, I have a little travel kit that fits into like a makeup bag sized bag.
That
So
doesn't include the paper, right? Or the,
I don't usually take, well, I have like a drawing pad that I take because I like to do pen and ink drawings when I travel too. But I take my pocket palette like this size
Yeah.
and a pad of watercolor postcards,
Uh-huh.
same size. My
I like
pencil
Yeah.
and my pen
Uh-huh.
and a little cap, like a little cap that would go on like hairspray or something like that for my
Uh-huh.
water.
Oh,
And my palette has a
brush.
brush inside. So I don't usually ever do big
Uh-huh.
things. But I always have that little travel kit with me,
Nice.
my suitcase. Yeah, I'll bring it to the next class
Good to know.
so you can see what it looks like. Okay, so I'm going to just take my tissue here or a piece of paper towel, whatever you have handy, a little piece, and just sort of smooth this graphite. We're not trying to like remove any, just sort of smooth it over these lines. And if you have some little particles, you can dust those off onto your garbage can.
Sorry, still scribbling.
Me too.
Okay, no hurry. We're doing good on time.
I'm old, I scribble slowly.
Yeah, I love my little travel kit.
Oh, I think that's you guys have the real pricey one, huh?
No, it was, well, I don't know. I have, this is the little paint thingy.
Mhm,
Oh, that.
yes,
Okay.
I have
Yeah.
one of those. I think that is the one.
And it
Well,
comes with this little tiny brush that pulls apart and fits in
yeah,
there.
yeah.
I saw somebody had one that had like a water container that hung off the side, and
Oh, no.
Mhm.
I looked at it on Amazon. I think it was like $70 something.
Oh,
Yeah,
no,
those
this
are
was
kind of
like
expensive.
25.
Yeah, you can get them cheaper.
I think you might be referring to mine, and I know I didn't spend any more than 30. I might have gotten it on sale and I might not have, but I got it from Dick Blick.
I got mine from Cheap Joe's online.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to start looking at. I'm not a big online shopper.
Neither am I.
Oh, I'm not either.
Okay, how's everybody doing with their tracing?
Good.
Good. Okay, I'm going to move on here. So I'm going to set that just to the side for a second, and I'm going to take my drawing and set it aside. And I'm going to take my watercolor paper. So today I'm using Arches 140-pound cold press, and I'm actually reusing a different painting. So I'm going to paint on the back of this painting. Because I just, if you have a painting that you don't think you're going to frame or use, just, you can paint on the back of it. Feel free to do that. Recycle. All right, so I'm going to tape my painting down all the way around the sides to stretch it. Mark and Sheila, I have cut down some of my Coroplast boards down to this 10 by 12 size that I'm using today. So this is like those big ones we use in the in-person classes, but I cut them down to this size so they fit an 8 by 10 piece of watercolor paper. And you can kind of, it's more portable. You can move it around. And if you guys want one of these, I have a couple at the gallery. I know Colleen, you're gonna pick one up too, so I have one set aside for you too.
Stop by when I get back to Hillsborough.
Yeah,
Yeah. Thank you.
We'll come by. Thank you.
sure. All right, so I've got my paper taped down. I'm gonna take my little guy here and sort of place him where I want him to be. On my watercolor paper. And then I'm gonna, and make sure it says front so that you can read it up there. And tape it down at the top with a little piece of tape. And then we're gonna trace all these lines again to transfer this to the watercolor paper. And you might need something under your hand so you don't get graphite all over. And again, if you wanted to use a ruler to trace these straight lines, feel free to do that. I like to start at the top and sort of work my way down. And then before I get too far, I'm just going to lift this up and check. So that's good. I can see my lines. You should be able to just see them, but
Mhm.
you don't want them too dark or so that you're indenting your paper or embossing your paper.
Mm. I hadn't thought about that.
If you are, it's okay. I'll cover it up with paint.
Go. I don't want to sound like a stalker or anything, but I just love your classes.
Oh, thanks. I'm glad you're enjoying them.
Will you
I'm
ever
glad-
stop doing Zoom?
Not anytime soon.
Oh, good.
A lot of people like it.
I'm grateful to the person who asked for Hummingbird. It's on
Ooh.
my life list.
You're welcome.
On my life,
Colleen.
on my life list is a rabbit. Rabbit.
Mm.
Thank
Okay,
you, Colleen.
so when you've completed your tracing, it should look something like that. And I'll give you a few minutes just to finish that up.
Not a cutesy rabbit, but my brother loves rabbits.
Hmm.
He used to go rabbit hunting with my father all the time.
Oh.
Sorry, vegetarians. That was the way it was when I was a kid. And he just loves them. It makes him think of my dad. So I'd like to, that'd be a nice thing to. If you choose, it's, you're the boss.
A rabbit. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I've never painted a lot of animals until now. People like animals. So it's a learning opportunity for me too.
Well, I need a sailboat, so I'm glad that's coming up.
Oh, good.
That's right. I like now. See, I like boats. then that's what reminds me of my dad, boats,
Mm.
because we always had a boat.
Oh, nice.
We were always, he could water ski barefoot.
Wow.
That's quite a feat if you're
Oh.
not familiar with water skiing. It's
A lighthouse would be nice too. I've tried Hasita Lighthouse. It didn't come out too
Oh,
terribly well.
a lighthouse. That's a
Yeah.
good idea.
Well, because
I'll write
I'm
that
half
down.
the time at the Oregon coast, so.
Yeah.
will keep you busy forever, Catherine.
Hey, I love the suggestions. I really do. It's great for me too. So thank you. Okay, so we all ready to start painting here?
Yeah.
Everybody good? Okay. I'm going to spray my paints here a little bit. Because I don't really need to spray all of them, but they just all end up getting sprayed. So again, we're going to be using sort of a cool red, some burnt sienna, a little bit of yellow or viridian, or if you have a different green, and Payne's gray. If you want to put blue in there too,
Mhm.
feel free. Okay, so we're going to start with the head section. And let me just bring the painting back over here so you all can see what we're going to be doing. So we're going to be using a wet and wet technique for the head here. So we're going to paint just plain water on the head, around the eye, and sort of up to the beak at this point, not the whole beak, but just sort of down to where the wings kind of start. We're going to stop there for the first part. So we're going to paint clear water in here, and then we're going to drop some of our red, our viridian, yellow, Payne's gray, whatever combination you like or that you want your bird to have. This was just my choice because I have a little hummingbird that comes around my house who has a lot of green on him. So we're going to be doing that first. Then we're going to paint in the beak with our small brush. So for the head, we're going to use our number 6 round brush. For the beak, we're going to use our small brush, and we're going to paint that in wet on dry after we paint the head. And then we're going to move to the wings. So we're just going to use some brush strokes for the wings. We're going to start with some viridian, and then we're going to add some Payne's gray at the ends, and maybe a little more viridian or some Payne's gray right at the base. We're going to do the same thing for the tail feathers. I put a little bit more viridian and then Payne's gray over the top for those. Then we're going to come back into the body, and we're going to do a wet and wet again here, similar to what we did for the head. And then we're going to use our small brush and just paint this line indicating sort of the belly or the front of the body with our small brush. And then we're going to come in here and paint these petals, and I'll explain that a little bit more when we get there, just to not overwhelm you with all the details right now. But so for right now, we're going to stick with the head. We're going to do a wet and wet. So we're going to paint some clear water on the head. So I'm just going to take the water from my water container over here with my number 6 brush is what I'm using today. So I'm just going to start kind of at the base, and I know you can't see the water, but I'm just painting it around the eye and up to those pencil lines, and just sort of down to where the wings would start. So kind of down to about here. And you want the water to be, I'm going to try to turn this so you can kind of see there. If you look, you can see the water is kind of glistening there. So you want it to be kind of glistening, but not puddled up. I'm just going to add a tiny little bit more. And then I'm dipping my brush directly in the paint rather than pulling it out into my mixing area because I want it to be fairly dark. So I'm just going to start with the red, and I'm just going to drop some of that red in there like that.
Below the eye. Yeah.
Yeah, and you at this point can kind of put it wherever you want. We're just going to kind of let these colors flow together. I'm going to start with the red and then add a little bit of Viridian. And I'm just going to kind of go around the eye a little bit here. Don't worry too much about the eye because we're going to paint that in sort of later when it's a little bit more dry. So you can just add a little bit more Viridian. And then if you want some yellow, I had a little bit of yellow in there. In a couple spots. And then a little bit of Payne's Gray. And just remember Payne's Gray kind of goes a long way. So for this, I'm going to kind of go around the edges. And I'm just using sort of the tip of my brush and pointing it towards those pencil lines. And we're going to paint all the way up to the pencil lines so that
With Payne's Gray.
with the Payne's Gray. And I just went outside the pencil line, so I'm just going to try to clean that up a little bit. There we go. And that's pretty much all I'm going to do. I'm just going to let those colors sort of flow together. I'm just cleaning up my lines a little bit here. And maybe add just a little bit more dark right at the edges because I know this is going to dry a lot lighter. So I'm going to hold that up a little bit so you can see what that looks like right now. And if you think, you know, you need to add a little bit more of something, go ahead. I'm going to add a little bit more Viridian here. So bringing this back over, I left a fair amount of white. I didn't paint in the whole bird. So don't be afraid if, as we go through this, you might have too much white or something. Just gonna maybe make that eye a little bit more round. Everybody doing okay with that?
Now, did you use the Payne's Gray around the eye?
Well, I used a combination of colors. They kind of all just sort of went around the eye, but yeah, there's Payne's Gray.
Okay.
There's some Viridian. There's a little bit of yellow, a little bit of red.
Oh, I forgot the yellow. Oh, God. Where did you put, sorry, where did you put the yellow?
Well, at this point, it just, you know, you could drop it in anywhere that you have. I have just a little tiny bit like above the eye on this one. He's just got a little tiny bit above the eye. Wherever. There's not like a super solid formula here.
There's not.
No, this is art.
A rant. Yeah. Thanks for asking about the yellow. I missed where it went. I heard, but I wasn't watching.
Okay, now I'm going to turn if you can turn your painting, it would be helpful. If you can't, maybe I'll demonstrate without turning first. But I'm going to take my small brush. For me, I've got a 1. I'm going to take some Payne's Gray to my small brush. I'm going to paint in the beak. And so I'm just going to take my time with this and just use sort of the very tip of my brush here and pull that line down. Now I'm going to try to leave a white line right in the middle.
Because you painted the top side of the beak.
I just painted the top. Now, if you can
Okay.
turn your board, what I would suggest, and I just did that because I wasn't turning the board, I would suggest starting at the base of the beak and working your way towards the end. So I'm drawing 2 lines here, one at the top and one at the bottom.
Catherine, is it Payne's Gray that you're using for that?
Yes, Payne's Gray. Mm-hmm.
Great, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, sorry, that's my cell phone. An emergency alert down here in Tillamook County.
Oh,
What's happening?
Oh, apparently, there is a suspect on the loose. I guess he shot somebody,
ooh,
and it's an emergency alert to be on the lookout and stay away from him.
wow.
Yeah,
That's
Are your doors
scary.
locked?
I'm sorry.
We'll wait for you to go lock your doors.
Oh, they're locked. They're always locked unless I'm going out.
Me too.
So I'm just sort of blending what I just painted there on the beak into the head with a brush that I've just blotted.
Question.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like you might have wider lines on your bird's beak as opposed to skinny lines. So that there's a little open space of white that's not covered and more black than I drew. I drew the world's thinnest pencil line with my brush. Should it be wider toward the middle of the beak? Oh, okay.
I'm not exactly sure what your question is.
You just picked it up and answered. Thank you.
Okay.
Mine needs rhinoplasty.
Ah,
Should have used her.
I just use the very, very tip of my brush, and to get like a really small line, hold it more straight up and down, maybe. I know there are some other brushes that you can use that help you get smaller lines.
The problem is mine wasn't exactly straight, so I kept trying to straighten it out.
Mm.
Next time, a ruler. I'm going to employ a ruler. I think. I don't know. We'll see.
Okay, how's everybody doing with that? Ready for the next step? Okay. So we're going to take our bigger brush, our round, our number 6 brush or number 8, and we are going to paint in, we're going to start with the wings now. So we're just going to be using some brush strokes, and we're going to add first some Viridian, just using some brush strokes. And then we're going to add some Payne's Gray. And these are just me pushing down on the brush and letting up like this.
Okay.
That's all those are. Very simple brush strokes for the wings. So I'm going to start with the Viridian. And again, I'm just pulling the paint out of right out of here and not bringing it into my mixing area because I want it to be a little bit darker. So I'm going to start with this top wing, and if you notice here, I left just a little white space between the 2 wings. So we're going to try to do that.
Try is the operative word.
Yes. So I'm just going to start by following along. I'm going to do the top one first. I'm going to follow along this pencil line here. So I've just got that one brush stroke. So you can see I am right above the pencil line below it. So just one brush stroke so that we can leave that pencil line. And then I'm just going to add a few more going little ways up. The wing here, and I'm going right along that top pencil line so that we can cover it up. And then I might just fill in that little spot a little bit right there. Now I'm going to show you something on this painting. So when we do these upper parts of the wings, we want to angle it towards the body. So we want this nice curve here, angling it towards the body. So we kind of want to make the top of the feathers longer than the bottom of the wing. So the top feathers we want longer than the feathers at the bottom of the wing. When I originally did this painting, I showed some of you this before, I did it the opposite direction. So this was my original painting and I did it the wrong way. So I made the wings, the feathers longer going this way. And if you look closely, you can see the shadow of what once was there. So as soon as I did it, I was like, oh no, everything else was like looking so good. And I got to this point, I'm like, the wing is going the wrong direction. And so I kind of scrubbed this area with some water really quick and tried to lift it off, but there's still a shadow of the wing there if you look really closely. So that's just an example of my mistake so that you don't have to make it. So it's kind of like we're angling just in slightly when we make these brush strokes. So we're going to do that with Payne's Gray. So I'm going to take my Payne's Gray here.
And you still have your 6 brush?
I still have my number 6.
Okay.
So we're going to do all the wings and feathers with the number 6 brush.
Okay.
Now I'm going to take a little of this Payne's Gray and bring it down into my mixing area just to see how dark it is here. We still want it pretty dark, but I just want to make sure. So now I'm going to start where we ended with that Viridian, and we can kind of overlap here, but we're just going to be pushing down and then lifting up like this. So we're just going to do brush strokes for these wings. And again, we want to be mindful of the direction we're going. And you can kind of lift off at the end. And I'm also trying to be mindful of where the top of this wing down here starts. So I'm going to stop there. Now we have some sort of hard edges there. We're going to come back and we're going to put we're going to glaze some more Viridian over the top of that. So don't worry about that right now. If yours is dark like mine. If it's really bothering you and it's like that, you can just wash your brush, blot it, and just sort of soften that off a little bit like that.
It's going to be a do-over.
Did you go all the way to the other wing line or not?
I did. So I went right up. So I left a little white line right above that pencil line for the wing below it.
Okay.
So we kind of have to have a little white line all the way up to there. Now, before I start on this lower wing, I'm just going to erase a little bit of this pencil line at the back of the body here. And then we're going to do the same process. These feathers are going to be a little bit more visible. There's just going to be more that we can see. So we're going to kind of do the same process with the Viridian and make some nice little brush strokes with that. So I'm going to take my Viridian and I'm going to start right here, and I'm just going to paint right along that pencil line. So I'm going right up to the pencil line now. And then I'm just going to make some little brush strokes like this, pulling away from that one that I just made. And again, we're angling it sort of towards the body.
Oh, oh.
And then I'm going to continue on with the Payne's Gray. So again, I'm just pulling a little bit of that out of my mixing area. Added just a tiny bit of water there from my brush. And I'm just going to sort of overlap and just going to pull my brush along this pencil line. And then we're going to make that same shape. So I'm just pulling the brush and angling that wing towards the body. Yours might look a little different or be a little bit longer or shorter. These two sort of look a little bit different already, but that's just the way my paintings go. So I'm going to add just another sort of glazing of some Viridian up here to make some little shorter brush strokes and just darken this just a little bit. And then maybe just add a little tiny bit of Payne's Gray right at the base. I'm going to hold that up so you can see it. And like I said, yours is probably going to look different. This looks different. This is the third time I've painted this, and it's different every time. I'm going to add a little bit more Viridian right along that second base of that second wing. Just adding a few more brush strokes and then just a tiny, tiny bit of Payne's Gray right at the base of the wing. And I could have left a little bit more space between these brush strokes up here. I might have liked that better, but that's okay. And if you want to give your wings a little bit more definition, you could always add a little bit more glazing of Payne's gray, some little brush strokes like that, if you want. I don't know if it's necessary though.
I'm liking it.
Nice.
It's good.
I'm grateful that I'll see a recording. Like, I don't know. I think I'm tired.
It's been a long week.
It has. I don't know why. Yeah, mine looks like a phoenix.
Hmm.
The
Well, you
wing
could just go with that.
phoenix like.
So I'm going to move on to the tail feathers here. And I'm going to be using some Viridian. So again, I'm just adding a little water to my paint here, and I'm going to use it right out of the paint well. So we're going to do the same sort of thing. We're going to start with some Viridian, and this time this back feather is going to be the longest, and we're going to sort of angle up towards the body, and the feathers will get shorter as they get towards the body. And then we're going to glaze over a little bit of Payne's gray. So kind of the opposite of the wings. So I'm just going to start kind of at the base here. I'm just going to pull my brush down along that pencil line. Could have gotten a little bit more paint on my brush there. So I'm just pulling it down like that. So just a brush stroke. And I'm going to do that a couple more times here. And again, I'm angling towards the body, and we're going to stop at this pencil line right here. So I'm kind of starting in the same place each time, but ending in a different place.
Staying inside those two lines.
Yeah, or thereabouts.
Okay.
These lines were just sort of like a guideline for
Right.
where we wanted those tail feathers to be. So when we're done with this part, we're going to move on to the body. And then we're going to, when we're done with the body, we'll come back to that tail feather and we'll glaze some Payne's gray over the top. So we'll just take another minute on the tail feathers here. And for the body, we're going to be doing a wet and wet technique. Using pretty much the same colors we use for the head. Bring this guy back over here. So I use some Payne's gray, some yellow, some red, some Viridian, just dropped in some colors there. So to do that, we're going to paint some plain water in here from your water container. And I'm not quite going all the way to the edge of the belly, but kind of going up to the wings, up to the tail feather. It's okay if it bleeds in a little bit. So kind of this general area here, you can kind of see where my water is from that light green there. And then I'm just going to take a little bit of Payne's gray, and I'm just kind of like randomly dropping that in. So just have fun with it. Don't get too concerned with perfection here. Maybe a little bit of some yellow. A little bit of some Viridian. And just letting those colors sort of blend together. And then maybe a little bit of your red. And for me, I'm just going to leave that and sort of let it blend in. It's pretty like blotchy, but I know that those colors are going to sort of blend together. And a little bit got on the tail feathers. That's okay. We've got a little bit of a backwash there, but we're going to let that dry and we're going to put some Payne's gray over the top. Everybody doing okay with that?
And you put the Viridian in there too, correct?
I did. I put Viridian,
Yellow and red.
yellow, Payne's gray, and the red. Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, the paint's great.
And then we're going to take our small brush when you're ready. And we're just going to go right along the pencil line here with a very light line. I'm just sort of using the tip of this brush.
Payne's gray.
Yeah. Doing okay?
Yeah.
And then when you're ready, we're going to use the same small brush and we're going to use Payne's gray, pretty dark, to paint in our eye. Leaving that little reflection as much as possible. Kind of makes him come alive. Now the tail feather should be fairly dry-ish.
Mine's still pretty wet.
Is it? Okay, well, let's
I'm
maybe
gonna put you on mute and
get-
then I'm gonna hair dry it.
Oh, okay. Perfect. Then we'll finish that tail.
I can see where I mute. Ah. No.
I can mute you also.
Don't see my mute. Let's see. Oh, here we go.
How's everybody else doing? Good. Thumbs up.
Mhm.
So we'll finish up the tail feathers, and then our last step is we're going to paint in these nice little blossoms and some branches and finish it up.
My body's looking a little tie-dyed.
Hmm.
Maybe I got too much red in there.
I don't know.
It looks a little. All right, I'll see what I can do. Let's see what we can do.
Had too much yellow.
Okay, I'm dry now. My tail is dry.
Okay. So we're just going to kind of go over and glaze a few little brush strokes of Payne's Gray over our Viridian on the tail. So I'm going to bring some out into my mixing area here just to make it a little bit lighter. We can always make it darker if we need to. And sort of the same direction. So kind of longer back here and shorter as it goes more towards the body. And you can go outside that line if you want. Make them as short or long as you like. I just did some quick little brush strokes there, and then I'm going to add a tiny little bit of darkness right at the base there. And that's all there is to that. Let's give it a little more depth. My hummingbird is looking a little bit plump.
It's spring.
Yeah. Okay, everybody doing okay with that? Okay. Sort of. While you're finishing up, or whenever you're ready, I'm going to prepare kind of a light mixture of red. So we're going to paint some petals in with a light mixture of red, and then we're going to drop some darker red inside the petals. So what we're going to do is you're going to paint yours wherever you want to on here. I'm going to start with one right above the beak, like the bird is like going for that flower. And then we're going to do one on either side of that. So we're just going to do some really simple blossoms here, about 5 petals each. So I'm going to start like right above the beak here, and I'm just going to make some blossoms like that. I'm just pushing down with my brush to make those blossoms. Those petals. And then I'm going to go back into my red here. I'm putting the tip of my brush right into the paint, and I'm going to drop that right in the middle like that. I'm going to wash my brush so that I don't have that dark red on there.
Oops. Oh, too wet. Oh,
Too
well.
wet? You can blot with a paper towel.
I did. It looks fine. It looks very.
Oh, good, good.
Thank you. I remembered the paper towel.
Yeah.
I use it a lot, that paper towel.
Mhm.
So I'm just going to add 2 more, kind of where it looks good to me. I'm going to start one right here. Again, I'm sort of pushing my brush down and letting it up as I make these petals. And they don't really have to be super fancy.
Good, because mine
Yeah.
aren't.
Mine aren't either. And then I'm dipping my brush in the red and I'm just going to touch it right in the middle like that. As long as they somewhat look like flowers, you're going to be fine because they're pinkish and they're flower shaped. And then I'm going to add another one sort of down here. And I'm just going to make this one probably a little bit smaller just for variety. Just like that. And again, I'm going to dip my brush in the paint and pop it right in the middle like that. So cute. Give you a minute to finish those. The next part of the process is we're just going to draw in. We use our pencil to give us some guidelines first. We're just going to draw some lines that kind of connect these blossoms together with branches, and then we're going to paint over those with some burnt sienna and a little bit of Payne's gray on the shadows underneath. How's everybody doing?
Just
Good.
about, not quite.
Okay, take
Almost.
another minute. We're doing fine on time here.
Okay. Oh.
Okay, so I'm going to draw in my branches. I'm going to start coming from the left-hand side, a little bit above this blossom, and then I'm just going to draw a line up kind of to it, but not all the way to it, and then maybe coming out like this with maybe another little branch like that. Yours might look different, and that's totally fine. And then I'm going to connect one. Let me see, what do I want here? Maybe one like that, and then coming out like that. Depends on where your flowers are. And then one connecting these two and then coming down like that. I'm going to hold that up so you can see what I did. But like I said, based on your flower placement, your branches might have a different idea of where they want to go. And then I'm going to take I'm debating. You can either use your small brush or your number 6. I might use my number 6 for the burnt sienna and then go under it with the Payne's gray with the smaller one. So So I'm just going to take some burnt sienna here. And just go along that pencil line. I'm making the base of the branch a little bit thicker towards the edge of the paper. And then I'm going to use more like the tip of my brush out here on the smaller branches. So I'm kind of holding my brush more straight up and down. And I'm just painting right over that pencil line and kind of making it a little bit thinner towards the end. Don't worry about the pencil line showing because we're going to go over that with a little bit of Payne's gray. So nothing fancy with these branches. Just paint over your pencil lines. I'll give that a quick minute to just dry a little bit. And then I'm going to take a little bit of Payne's gray. Got some in my mixing area here, so it's not completely dark. I've got a little bit of water mixed with it. And I am gonna use the small brush for this part. And I'm just gonna go underneath. I'm gonna try to do this without sticking my head in the camera. I'm just gonna go underneath those lines with sort of the tip of that small brush. And if you've got the pencil lines showing, you can just cover them up at this point. So these are kind of wiggly lines, and that's what we want. So they look like branches, so. Just something like that.
I like it.
Mhm.
Nice.
I still have to work on the tail a bit because I'm still kind of wet down there. So
Oh, okay.
I gotta go back and highlight it more. But
Oh,
I
yeah.
love this. Thank you so much, Catherine.
Good. Yeah, thank you for the suggestion. It was so fun. And if you see any little pencil lines that didn't get covered up with paint, like I've got one down here and a little one up here, you can erase those if you want. Optional. You should have covered up most of the pencil lines though. And then of course, don't forget to sign your painting. So I like to sign mine somewhere sort of in the composition. Sometimes I sign with pencil, sometimes I sign with pen. Sometimes I sign with pencil and then go over it with a little bit of paint, which I will do on this one. So I've got like a little 0 brush here. And I like to pick a color that was in the composition. Maybe like this Viridian, I'll use this. Yeah, I need a little bit more water. Just using the tip of my brush here, going over that. Like that.
You have a nice short last name. I just do my initials because otherwise it's
Yeah.
too long.
All right. How's everybody doing with that? We're right on time today.
Good,
Mm.
good, good.
Any questions?
Nope, looking forward to
No.
doing it over. I messed up on the wings really bad.
Oh,
But
well, it's your
it's
first
good
try.
practice, practice, practice.
Yeah.
So my outline of the body didn't come out too terribly well, but could I just use like the skinny black pen to do that?
Yeah. Yeah, you
Okay.
could. Sure. Same thing with the beak, you know.
Okay.
You could do pen with that and sort of, carry that line all the way down.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Okay, clean it up with the pen too.
Thank
Mhm.
you, Catherine. We may bring ours by so you could see it.
Oh, yay. Yes, please do. I would love that.
Are you there till 2 today, or what's your schedule?
I'm there. Oh, nice,
nice,
BJ.
BJ.
I'll be here till 3 unless for some reason nobody's around and everybody's too hot, and I'll be here at least until 2. Okay. How about that? But I'm planning
Sounds
for
great.
3.
That's lovely. Okay, we'll see you later.
Okay. I'm going to switch my camera back.
Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you,
so
all
much.
of you. This was really fun. And if,
Like it.
like I
It
said, I'll
always
send out
is
the
fun.
instructions. Oh, thank you. I'll send out the instructions and the video later on. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to send me an email. Or if you have
Okay,
any suggestions for future classes, I've written down the ones that we talked about today. So,
good.
all right. Stay
All right,
cool,
thank you.
everyone.
Stay
See you next
cool.
Thank
class.
you.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.